Hello, welcome to The Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Today, if you're a Khorne fan, it's a very exciting day. So we've had a little look at or Games Workshop previewed a little look about what might be coming up in the Khorne Battle Tome. And the first thing to say is that you are getting some rules changes. This is actually more than I personally was expecting. I obviously always hope for more rules changes, more models, more things. And actually, the video I made on Monday, there was quite a lot of disappointed Khorne fans who were like, wow, we're not really getting any new models. We probably will just get a copy and pasted book, etc., etc., etc. And I really felt their pain. I tried to reply to a bunch of people as well. Also, just a little side note, nearly at 30,000 subscribers. If anyone would like to subscribe who is watching this video and hasn't done, pretty cool. That'd be an exciting milestone for the channel. That'd be a fun thing. Anyway, but they have showcased that there is going to be some rules changes to how the army works. And that's a big deal. A very big deal. If you are new to Khorne as an army and you're watching this video because you're excited about maybe playing Age of Sigmar and maybe playing with Khorne, well, congratulations, you should buy an Iron Jaws army. And the reason I say that is because the way you think a Khorne army works, which is you just run across the field and you smash someone in the head, is not how it's traditionally played. Famously, if you're a Khorne player, you loved using Murderlust to shut down charges, pin units in, and do a bunch of clever stuff. Iron Jaws armies can still do that, as an FYI. If you played against a Khorne player, you hated it, because it was really oppressive in the movement phase, and also it really was very tactical, which felt very odd. You were like, I'm going to come fight you, and they're like, well, I'm going to pin you in, I'm going to make you not charge, I'm going to do these other things, I can do a redeploy, I'm going to do a Murderlust, and you're like, oh, this is actually quite confusing. And it was really hard, especially on large model bases, like with Bloodthirsters as an example. They really had an opportunity to bring a lot of potential power in your opponent's turn. So it was a really powerful ability, which Khorne players loved and people hated to play against. I don't know if it was ever too good. Anyway, I don't really think that's the case. Anyway, that's gone. And the old system for how Blood Tithe worked, which was that you got, for every model that died, not every model, that would be too good, for every unit that died on the board, then you would gain a Blood Tithe point. And that included enemy units and it included your units. The problem that Khorne really had in 4th edition is that we ended up with a game system that was like 25% smaller. So actually, even though you didn't get as many Blood Tithe points, they didn't change the economy of how you generated Blood Tithe points. There were less Blood Tithe points on the board because there were less units on the board. So they really struggled to generate their Blood Tithe points. And as we're going to point out, we'll say it now, the Blood Tithe economy as a battle trait is really weird, because it really is based on you getting special abilities only when stuff happens in the game. Normally, with a lot of other armies, you have battle traits that you get immediately. So you have your war scrolls and you have your spells or your whatever, and you're like, right, that's my army, that's 2,000 points. And then you get your battle traits or your special rules on top of those. Sometimes they're like in a little chart, like you've seen with Idoneth Deepkin or Daughters of Cain, but sometimes they're just straight up buffs, like you see with Slaves to Darkness, where you're like, well, this unit just gets a mark and it gets a special rule. And you're like, wow, that's pretty good. Like, so you can just make units better, and that's free to do. So for Khorne, they're in a really awkward and weird position where they basically don't have any special abilities outside of their war scrolls, and you need stuff to die to make special abilities happen. Now, number one, that's super thematic, and I really like that. That's very, very cool. Unfortunately, it means that you only get better later and if you've already killed enough of their stuff, you don't need to be any better. But if they kill I guess there's maybe an elastic mechanic to it. If they kill a bunch of your stuff, you now get better, but you can't really take enough cheap stuff that your stuff dying really benefits you, right? So I think that's a little bit awkward. Yeah, also, it's a very chaosy kind of like mechanic as well. Like Blood Tithe is similar to how you would see like Destiny dice or Depravity points, or I guess Disease is a little bit different for Nurgle, but their own currency. But yeah, there's a scaling issue or maybe a tempo issue with the fact that your special abilities only happen. Like if you take Cruel Boys, for example, who I personally think right now are a very good army, Cruel Boys immediately can start doing dirty tricks straight off the bat. They're like, I'm doing dirty tricks. Off I go. and their dirty tricks get worse. But that's fine because they can guarantee their abilities. Anyway, that's not to say that this that Khorne is bad or the army is bad or any of those other things. It's just that it can definitely feel like you will struggle like initially, like in the early turns, or it could feel that way. I'm not saying it will be that way. Also, maybe this is a very good army for people who are super into like gacha machines or gacha games or Pokemon nerds who love opening their cards and getting the shiny, because you can unlock stuff, right? So they've changed up what used to be where you got blood tithe points and then you would use an ability, right? Now you unlock a skill tree. Now, this isn't really a surprise because one of the game designers comes from, one of the new game designers who's been there for a couple of years, but one of the game designers comes from like a computer game background. And actually, as an RPG nerd myself, I quite like a skill tree or a tech tree. I think that's quite fun. Which one of these will unlock my my ability to use boats? I don't know. But like from like the RTS games. But this is quite fun. And the way it works is, now, it's really important to actually point out how this works. However, instead of spending points to use abilities, that's how it used to work, you use them once per battle round at the start of any turn to permanently unlock abilities from a new branching tree. So once per battle round at the start of any turn to permanently unlock abilities from a new branching tree. So you start off on battle round 1, it requires you to have 0 blood tithe points and you unlock Murder Lust. We'll talk about what that is in a moment. And then in the next battle round, you can unlock Divine Scorn or Punish the Pacifist as long as you have 1 blood tithe point, which means 1 unit needs to die, right? So you can only unlock something once per battle round, but you can do it in any player's turn. So as an example, in battle round, battle round 1, let's say I'm the Khorne player and I go first, well then obviously I unlock Murder Lust. But let's say my opponent is going first, I can still unlock Murder Lust, which is good. So it means whoever wins a priority roll into turn 2, doesn't matter who goes first, I can still do an unlock as the Khorne player. So I don't have to wait till my turn, which is good because in Age of Sigmar, it's possible that I go first in battle round 1, my opponent has a turn, they take a double turn, and then it's my turn. I might not, I'll definitely have a lot of blood tithe at that point, but I won't necessarily have unlocked some extra stuff. The reason this is good is some of these abilities obviously are going to be a bit reactive in using your opponent's turn, which is decent. The one negative thing here depends on how it's worded. We haven't seen that rule yet, is when in battle round 2, I unlock one of these two, Divine the Scorn or Punish the Pacifist, if I've got enough blood tithe. So it is stipulation based. And then in battle round 3, I'll get these other abilities. The real problem here is it means that like I only am getting really strong abilities later in the game, but at that point, maybe the conclusion of the game is going to be decided. Like it's already, like the game's already been concluded by turn 3. We're really just mopping it up in turns 4 or 5. Now, Age of Sigmar, this edition or this GHB is a much slower tempo. You don't necessarily need to be aggressive early, but you also do need to be aggressive because you need to get blood tithe points. So it means you've got to be aggro and kind of make the game solve itself earlier in the game, and you only get your strong bonuses later in the game, although there is a special ability for that. So it's really interesting to kind of conceptualize how this works. My hope is that what happens is at the start of a battle round, however many blood tithe points I have, I can unlock that many abilities depending. So let's say battle round 1, I've gone all in, full send summer. I've murdered a bunch of stuff. They've murdered some of my stuff. I've ended up with 7 blood tithe. Well, then in battle round 2, I hope I can unlock this and then this and then this. Probably not going to be the case, but that would be cool if that was the way it worked. Okay. So let's go look at the abilities that you unlock. The first one that you've unlocked, Murder Lust. So this will be active from turn 1, and you'll be able to use this ability in every turn for the rest of the game, is a reaction to you declaring a charge ability. You roll a dice, you can place one of the dice and the charge roll with that value, and if you do so, you inflict D3 mortal damage on the unit using the charge ability after the ability has been resolved. So re-rolling one of the dice makes it about as statistically likely as rolling 3 dice drop the lowest, so it takes your average charge from a 7 to a 9, as an example, so that's pretty okay. But obviously, if you needed a 7-inch charge, an 8-inch charge, very thematic, and you rolled a 6 and a 1, well then, you don't mind taking D3 mortals because, 5 out of 6 times you're going to be able to make that charge now, turn that 1 into a 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. In my luck, It's probably also going to be a 1 into a 1, but they've given me as many chances as I can take, right? So sorry, you roll the dice, then swap. I apologize. That's an important point to note. You roll the dice, and then you swap. You roll a dice, and then you can replace one of those dice. When I said re-roll, that was shorthand. And that's important because it also means you're going to be able to use the re-roll reaction as well, or command ability for a re-roll. So you roll the dice, you replace one of the dice with the charge roll with that value, and then if you wanted to, you could re-roll. It's important to point out, or re-roll, then replace, whichever way around you wanted to do it. Okay. Then we've got Divine Scorn. I think one of the problems also pointed out by the chat right now is calling it Murderlust is really awkward because it's the same name but a completely different ability. It would have been much cooler to have seen them rename it. And I've said this about them several times. Anyway, next up, Divine Scorn. This is going to cost you 1 Blood Tithe to unlock. And then this is once per turn at the start of any turn, which means every turn. Pick up to 3 enemy wizards or priests within 6 inches of any friendly Blades of Khorne units to be the targets. Roll a dice for each target on a 3+, subtract 1 from the target's power level to a minimum of 0 until the start of next turn. So this is a double stippy in that I need to be within 6 inches of wizards or priests with my units, which is pretty close. And then I need to roll a 3 up to make it happen. But reducing down their power level is pretty nice. I'd also like to say that because I can do Murderlust in every turn, and then after turn 2, I can do this every turn, there'll be a lot of bookkeeping for your Khorne army later in the game. I'll be like, oh, I'm going to Murderlust that charge. Oh, wait, actually start the turn. Am I in range to do the power level thing? That's pretty good. Okay. Anyway. So then if we go on and look further, Murder the Mystic is going to cost us 2 to unlock. And then pick up to 4 enemy manifestations to be the target in your hero phase. Make a banishment roll of 2d6. The banishment roll equals or exceeds the banishment listed for the manifestation. Then you inflict d3 mortal damage on each enemy unit within 3 inches of it, and the banishment is removed from play. That's pretty spicy in the right situation, especially at the start of the turn. You look at the board, you see that there's a manifestation right next to a hero that you want to kill. Well, then, ladies and gentlemen, off you go. So I think that's really fun. And then you've got Revel in Battle, which is 3 points. And so to unlock, so this is the most expensive of tier 3. So tier 3, most expensive. The rest cost 2. This costs 3. Okay, so this is a passive. Other than companion weapon abilities for combat attacks made by enemy units that charged, so there is a stipulation this turn, and that target of a friendly Blades of Khorne unit has no effect. So a charge target, so any of your Khorne units get charged, no weapon abilities can be used. No crit mortals, no auto wounds, no charge +1 damage. That's pretty nice, especially as that's army wide, but you will only be getting this at a minimum of turn 3. So, and it is going to cost you most of your Blood Tithe, but I'm sure in the right situation, if you're playing against the right army, right, that is going to be pretty impactful. So I think that's got people pretty excited, but again, that's going to happen later in the game, and either 3 of their units or 3 of your units need to have died. In fact, actually, that's not true. 4 as a minimum need to have died for that to happen. And ask yourself, how big is your Khorne army? How big are the armies that you're playing against? Are we really seeing a lot of units on the board? There's been a big conversation around like hammer units, right? Large bricks of something like, I don't know, like 6 Vanguards as an example. But if you go and watch the Age of Sigmar stat show, you'll see that a lot of the lists that we've seen recently have kind of drifted, not the Ogre armies or the Magmadroth armies, but some of the other armies have drifted to quite a lot of different units on the board. Cities of Sigmar example, there's been quite a lot of units on the board there. So anyway, that's the most powerful one that we've seen. That's Revel in Battle. And there are 2 more that are even more powerful. Slaughter the Triumphant and Cleave the Wild, Grin of Khorne. It does kind of tell you what they are here, in that Slaughter Triumphant grants all units that charge an extra attack, and Cleave Wide adds +1 to hit rolls for combat attacks you make. So like +1 to hit and then plus attacks potentially unlocking. Now, there's one last final ability you get as a battle trait, which I guess is your other bonus, but again, it only unlocks if a load of stuff is dead. If half of the units between yours and your opponent's roster is dead, then this ability automatically unlocks, and it's called Blood Drenched. What happens is, for the rest of the battle, the following effects apply. First up, Wild-Eyed Brutality, positive modifiers to save rolls for friendly Blades of Khorne units. You ignore them, so you cannot get positive modifiers for save rolls for friendly Blades of Khorne units. Now, that's pretty interesting. So you now cannot be defensive, and there's nothing you can be do about that. Also, it's being pointed out to me in the chat, right? And people are very angry about this, so I want to make sure we do talk about it before we talk about anything else. The Blood Drenched ability has a superfluous rules convention in that it requires half of the number of units killed rounding up. So as an example, if you have 15 units between my roster and my opponent's roster, right, then half is 7.5. Okay, if I kill 7 units, I haven't achieved it. And if I kill 8 units, I have achieved it, right? So I don't need to be told it's half rounded up. Just an unnecessary thing to bring up. I'm bringing it up anyway. Okay, and if you run Bloodthirsters, it's easy peasy for sure. That's easy, right? Also, it's been pointed out in the chat that this is an ability that does automatically unlock, but you do not need to activate it, right? This is an elective choice. You can use this ability because you might not want to ignore the positive modifiers for save rolls from friendly Blades of Khorne units. You might want to do all-out defense. So that's a really fair take. So it's elective. Either way, if you decide to activate it, all Khorne units can no longer get +1 save. Not good. However, blood-hungry weapons used by friendly blood-bound units, so all the mortals gain crit mortals on their weapons. Pretty nice. Weapons of murder add 1 to the rend characteristic of blood-hungry weapons by friendly Blades of Khorne non-monster demon units. So basically +1 rend on all of your demons. And then Bloodlord Supreme is +1 damage to blood-hungry weapons used by monster units. So your Bloodthirsters get +1 to wound. Now, what's interesting here is this is the biggest example of what might be an elastic mechanic. So if I'm a Khorne army and I'm already killing all my opponent's stuff and winning the game, this is just a win more bonus for my army. I just get to win more because now I do crit mortals and I potentially am much stronger, I guess. But I think the idea is if your opponent has killed a bunch of your stuff, like half of your stuff, and you still need to have killed half of their stuff, is this going to be enough of a bonus to bring you back into the game? That's a real good question. Also, does this also mean that you can no longer get a Bloodthirster back for free, which used to be a massive thing that Khorne players loved? We don't know. Also, we found out that Blood Warriors also get crit auto wounds now as well in this article. So this is very interesting. Very interesting. And that's actually not what I expected from the Khorne preview. Ultimately, I expected something that was just copy-paste. A lot of people in the community have been very disappointed with the kind of copy-paste mechanics that we've seen from different armies compared to indexes. And we've definitely wanted to see people revisit, or the game designers create content. I know that sounds crazy, but when I have a £30 book, I expect of them to have done a lot of work to create good quality content. A novel's like a tenner, and it's like 400 pages of romantasy, or at least those are the novels that I buy. A lot of romantasy on my shelf right now. So anyway, this is like a really fascinating kind of series of new stuff, and I'm really excited about it because it asks a lot of questions. And it doesn't like, and I know early on I said, you know, like it scales weirdly and stuff needs to die, and is there enough stuff on the board? Who knows? Who knows? But at least that's an interesting thing. Anyway, I want to say a special thank you to everyone who watches this video and is on Patreon for supporting me. You're the best. I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.